It's martini time again, and hope you missed me last night. But I was picking up a friend. Allergies are giving me some congestion in my throat. That's better. So, very interesting day. I've been doing some videos, and a black fella came over who had some work for me to do. We're sitting here talking and having a great afternoon. And he was talking to his daughter, and he said, and they know us, they're friends, and he said, you know, Ed and Tilly are colorblind. And we all laughed and everything. And I got to thinking, and my wife just got a present for her birthday, and she had a lot of nice little gifts, and this is one of them. Can you see what that is? Is it an angel or a rock? And then when I was down in Cape Hatteras, my daughter gave me a little gift. She knows I like frogs, and look at that. So here we have these two little images. Now, is this the question here? Is this a frog or is it a shell? Of course, so which one is it? This is a Zen cone. If you say it's a frog, you're wrong. If you say it's a shell, you're wrong. Now, which is it? You have to choose. Or if you say this angel is a rock, you're wrong. If you say it's an angel, you're wrong. Now, which is it? You have to choose. And I find that fascinating. You see, all of my spiritual practice, my reading and my study and everything, it's always a great joy to me when these abstract ideas become a living, take on their own life in my everyday mind. So here's everyday mind. A fellow here says, I wasn't colorblind. Now, what if this were a human being? And what if instead of the shell, you have a human being? And instead of the frog, you have a black person. So is this person a black person or is it a human being? Is it a frog or is it a shell? Now with the frog and the shell, if I'm interested in shells, I'm going to be saying, oh, what kind of a shell is that? You see, I'll become, oh, and look at that kind of shell. I wouldn't even see the frog. I would be seeing the shells. But if I was interested in frogs, I would say, well, isn't that a cute frog? Look at his big eyes and big mouth and everything. And you know, I wouldn't even see the shell. So if I see the frog, I don't see the shell. If I see the shell, I don't see the frog. Isn't that interesting? So if I see the human, I don't see the black person. If I see the black person, I don't see the human. Isn't that interesting? And this is the way perception works. Do we just see what are the names and forms we have given to things, what we're interested in, you see? But now why is this interesting? Now why would somebody even make that? Why would my daughter buy it? Why would I say, oh, look, it's a frog? That's a metaphor. It's a frog, it's not a frog. So the metaphor holds these two opposites together, and that contains energy and excitement and wonder. You know, after I look at that for a while, it won't be a big surprise. But when I first saw it, as any clever little craft, when we first see it, we say, oh, that's not a shell. I mean, that's a frog. Oh, and look, first we see the frog. And then we say, oh, look, it's made out of shells. Or, oh, look, it's made out of toothpicks. And then we see the toothpick and we don't see the frog. Or we see the shell and don't see the frog. So it's back and forth. I see the frog, I see the shell. I see the shell, I see the frog. Now the metaphor holds both these contradictions together because they're contradictory. A shell can't be a frog and a frog can't be a shell simultaneously. But here it is. Simultaneously, it's a frog in a shell. So this generates interest because the metaphor that holds the two contradictions together in a single frame of reference generates wonder. But then, after a while, we forget about it. And it goes in the drawer and whatever. Give it to somebody. But when we first encounter it, there's two opposites are held together. And this is the same with human beings, you see. When we first encounter them, do we encounter the name we give them? When we encounter a neighbor or our wife or husband, do we just see the name we give them? Or do we see humanity, all of humanity in that one person? All of humanity is personified. All of life is personified in that one person. We don't see that. All we see is the name we have given them, which is the past. You see, if I had never seen a frog before, I would not know what that was. Or maybe it might appear in Star Wars or Avatar, you see, as some kind of foreign being, and then we would give it a name and then we would know what it was. But, we know what frogs are. It doesn't take much to identify a frog, just a few little qualities. Big eyes, sticking on top of the head, frog. Okay. So we're surprised when we see a shell that's a frog and a frog that's a shell. So in that surprise, in that wonder, we achieve oneness of opposites. We achieve a moment, a second of, aha, everything is one. And the same with people. If we can surrender our attachment to our names, when we meet a person, we can feel, aha, this is wonders of wonders. I don't know who they are yet, you see, because this is like, it is a, when the shell and the frog are one, that oneness is kind of like in an intermediate zone. It's not like, shells or frogs are two separate categories. But this little metaphor of the frog and the shell combines these opposites and makes a new whole, you see? A new item, a new thing. This has never been created before. This union of frog and shell has never happened before. Oh, I'm sure it has, but you play with me here. And have some crackers. So this, so there is this moment of Zen. A Zen moment is when opposites connect and you see something greater and it's a wonder. A new creation, a new being, And then, of course, it gets tired, you see. But the point is that it's a fact of our perception that keeps us from perceiving freshness and aliveness in the world. Everything is dead when we just know what everything's name. No, we all know our friends and our spouse and our mates. They're all yesterday. I know them. And then when we do that, we also know ourselves, you see. So when I can't see the wonder in another, I can't see it in myself. It goes both ways. So I just thought this was an interesting little example of how perception works and how the metaphor allows us to see both the frog and the shell at once. Whereas if we focus our attention, the frog, all I see is the frog, or all I see is the shell, but I can't see them both at the same time, except when the attention is relaxed. I think this is the point I'm trying to get. When we see a metaphor like this that combines unlikely opposites, it's called a conceit. I remember when I was studying English and I read John Donne's poetry, and I remember the word conceit because he had these rather grandiose comparisons Some people call it romanticism, but it was just, he would compare opposites, strange connections. That's what poets do, strange connections. MacGyver does that. I love MacGyver. MacGyver makes strange connections to create a new tool to get him out of a fix. So he'll combine anything to get out of a fix. So this artist combines frogs and shells to make a little conceit that holds two opposites together to create a metaphor or a window or a portal into unity. So the mind loves this. The mind loves these moments where you experience oneness when there was two. You see, there's two here. There's frogs in the mind, names, frogs, and there's shells. And when you see this, the one becomes two and the two become one. And that is a mini awakening. That's a mini, mini enlightenment. Enlightenment is when you see two and you see one. So even in racism, getting back to that. So if you just see a black person and you don't see a human being, you're just seeing one. And you're just seeing one, then you're one. And then whatever the definition you have of the black person is your own conditioning that you're reflecting on it, which gives you which makes you separate. But when you see the humanity of the other person, I'm human, you're human, now you're one. So you're one in relationship instead of two. When you can see the shell and the frog at the same time. So, I'll see you tomorrow morning.